Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to today's Advisicon Academy training. My name is Leslie Pfau. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Advisicon. We are a group of authors, teachers, consultants, and technologists offering training in Microsoft technologies, project management, and methodology. With attending any of our training sessions, we offer PDUs as we are a registered education provider with a Project Management Institute. At the close of today's session, I will give some instructions on how to claim your PDUs and how to contact Advisicon for any questions you may have. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few things so you know how to participate in today's event. Please review the control panel that should be on the top right of your screen. The audience is muted during this session, so in order to ask questions, you'll need to submit them in the questions window of the control panel. This webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the Advisicon YouTube channel for those who could not attend today's session live. Please note that any questions or comments submitted will not display in the recording, nor will any of your personal information be shared. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's instructor, Advisicon's PMO lead, Dave Benz. And without further ado, I will hand this presentation over so we can get started.
Thanks, Leslie. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, and we're very excited to have you here. I'm very happy to be giving this presentation today, talking about a great communication tool that's part of the Office 365 suite, Microsoft Outlook, and some tips and tricks on how to manage your inbox. A little background on me. I am one of our project advisors here at Advisicon, and I lead our project management office, taking care of making sure that our projects happen on time, which involves a lot of communication. I am a certified project management professional, in addition to being a Microsoft certified professional in Microsoft Project. So with that, we'll get on to our presentation today. First, we're going to talk a little bit about why inbox organization matters and why email is still an important part of our daily communication. We'll take a little bit of an overview of Outlook as a communication tool and as a method for managing our inboxes as well as our calendars. We'll have a bit of a time for a demo and talk some tips and tricks, and then we'll have some time for questions. And along the line of the questions, just want to point out and just kind of let everyone know that today's session is actually the first of 2 sessions that we're going to be having back-to-back on Outlook best practices. So if you have a question that you want answered and we don't have time to cover it today, please make sure you submit it and we'll definitely get back to you and possibly even be able to work it into next week's presentation, which will be titled Outlook Best Practices, Advanced Features and Time-Saving Techniques. So make sure you tune into that one as well. The email challenge. Right now, as of the beginning of 2019, there were approximately 3.9 billion email users with accounts that have been active within the last 3 months. So contrary to popular belief that email is dead, it is still very much alive and well, to the point where the number of active email accounts in the world is actually still almost 500 million more than the number of social media users. So even though social media is a huge part of how we communicate with each other nowadays, email is still a huge, significant part of it. We can see here that the averages for this year so far are the average American worker receives about 126 emails per day is the general average, with nearly a quarter of that being spam. So spam has been going down and not due to lack of volume, but due to the fact that our filters have gotten better at keeping out, but we still see a lot of it getting through. But even if you take that into account, the average person is probably receiving close to 100 emails a day. Some of you more, some of you less, but if you just look at that aggregate number of 100 messages, that's a lot of email that you need to be reading, possibly taking action on, and probably doing something with to keep track of in the future. So that brings us to, how do you organize all that? How do you keep track of it? Well, in our experience, we find that people fall somewhere in a spectrum between 2 extremes. Are you a filer or a piler? Are you somebody who takes every message that comes into your inbox and have to put it into a folder somewhere? Or are you somebody who just leaves it all in that inbox, in a folder, in a pile, in an archive folder, and just maybe if you need to find something, you'll dig through it with search. And maybe you use unread messages as a way to keep track of messages that you need to still follow up on. Anyway, most of us fall somewhere in between these. And we're finding that Outlook is very highly flexible and you can customize it to meet your preferences and your needs. I've been using Outlook for a long time, and in older versions of Outlook, the search functionality was pretty limited. And so if you had a lot of emails coming in that you needed to keep track of, you needed to end up using the folder structure in order to be able to keep track of everything. The newer versions, the search functionality is much more improved. And so I'm finding myself personally that I'm becoming more of a piler as time goes on. So I'm going to open this up to a quick poll here. I'd like to find out from the folks who are here, where do you classify yourself? Are you a filer or a piler? And we'll take a moment here and just kind of go through and see. We've got some answers coming in here. Looks like so far most folks are somewhere in between. Got a handful of folks that are file folders forever. A couple of people here who've maybe they file every incoming email neatly into a folder. All right, Piles for Miles is getting some love. Okay. Give a second here or two. All right, looks like just about everybody's answered. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll close that and we'll kind of go back here. So it's looking like most of us kind of fit somewhere into that middle category there. So you have some emails that you file into folders and some things that you just kind of leave into a pile, which is really a nice way to kind of go about doing that. So we'll just kind of continue on here and we'll take a look at how we might be able to maximize the efficiency of some of that here in the future. Next slide. Today we'll be focusing on Outlook for Office 365, which is similar to Outlook 2016 and some of the previous versions of Outlook, but there are some differences. Outlook as an application allows you to manage your email, calendar, contacts, and personal tasks in one application. When we talk about a project management context, Outlook can be a key tool to managing your communications with your team, your stakeholders, and anyone else who might be involved with your project. In an Office 365, Outlook can connect with Microsoft To Do, with SharePoint groups, SharePoint task lists, and if you're using Dynamics 365 or another similar CRM, you can even have add-ins put in your Outlook application that can be related directly from the application into the CRM, which can be very handy for making sure that you keep track of your communications with your clients, your customers, and anyone else who you might be in touch with. As we can see here across the screen, Outlook has a fairly similar layout and view, whether you're talking about the desktop application, the mobile application, or even the web browser. Before we kind of continue on here, I'd like to get a sense of like folks, you know, what version of Outlook are you using? So we're gonna have another quick poll here. We'll just see. A lot of folks are using Outlook 2016. All right, well, we've got a pretty even mix here between 2016, some older version, or Office 365. So that's pretty good. I think that's kind of pretty much in line with how folks are using here. I imagine folks who are in more of a corporate world might be seeing that their organization still hasn't upgraded to a latest version, but for the purposes of today, that's pretty good. Most of what we're going to see here should look fairly similar. There'll be a couple of features that won't necessarily show up in the older versions of Outlook, which I'll try to mention as we come across them. But with that, we'll take a quick look at the anatomy of the Outlook screen. When we look at the Outlook desktop window, this is the desktop application that comes with Office 365 and currently available for Windows and Mac computers, laptops, and desktops. As we look across the top, we see the ribbon, which is the primary interface for accessing the various tools and settings. On the left-hand side of the screen, we see the folder pane where we have all of our listed favorited folders, different mailboxes, search folders, and Office 365 groups. And it also contains navigation to other parts of Outlook at the bottom, looking at the calendar, your contacts, your tasks. In the middle section of the window, we have the reading pane and the message list where we can see the actual email. And that's kind of where we're going to spend some time later kind of showing how to customize and change the view here. On the right, we have the to-do bar, which can be customized to display any combination of your calendar, task list, and key contacts. As we switch along to looking at Outlook Online, this is the web application that's part of the Office 365 suite. And as you can see, there's a lot of similarities with the desktop application. We similarly have a folder pane and a reading pane view with a message list. And then on the right-hand side, we have the section that they call My Day, which can be accessed by clicking the icon up in the top ribbon there with the checkbox on it. My Day is pretty similar to the to-do in that it allows you to toggle back and forth between your calendar and your task lists. A quick comment here on the Outlook Online is that the task section of Outlook Online is now linked directly to Microsoft To Do. And so if you're using tasks in that way, you'll find that To Do is becoming more and more a part of Microsoft's view for personal task management. And we will have another webinar on that coming up here in the next couple months. So make sure to keep in touch with that if you're interested in learning more about the new directions that Microsoft is headed with task management. All right. Now we're going to get to the fun part here. Dive into a little bit of a demo. So I'm going to go ahead and switch right over to a demo email account that I have loaded up in Outlook. And we can see here as we come into, this is a pretty standard view that shows up probably the first time that you see an Outlook and you have a profile loaded. From a look and feel kind of a perspective, we'll start here with the reading pane because that's where most people spend most of their time. And as we can see, there's a couple of key options here that can really change how you view and access your emails. As you can see here, there's a preview message listed under here as well as the reading pane. And sometimes you want to turn that on and off. So if you want to turn the reading pane off because either you have a security concern in your organization or because you need more screen real estate to actually see your message list, you can go up to the View tab in the ribbon. Under the Layout section here in the middle, click the reading pane. And you can either move the reading pane to the bottom of your screen, maybe if you have a portrait orientation monitor, or you can turn it off altogether. One of the other options here, as you can see, these messages have a couple line preview underneath them. Over here in the middle section under Arrangement, we have this option called Message Preview. And as you can see right now, it's defaulting to showing 2 lines. If I want to keep my messages a little bit more compact, I might turn off the Message Preview altogether. But maybe I want to see at least the first 2 lines of it. And we can see that quickly changes all of that information. Another big change that's happened in the last few versions of Outlook is the ability to group messages by conversation thread. As we can see here, we have a whole bunch of messages that are here as part of the same conversation. And again, under this View tab, I have the option to click this checkbox of Show as Conversations. We'll just apply this to this folder. So now we can see that these messages have been quickly grouped under a single message. And now it's not taking up nearly as much space. If we click the little arrow that's on the left side of the message, we see it expands to the most recent messages that have shown up there. And if I click on it again, it expands to a deeper level to show all the communications that have happened, to include the replies that this mailbox sent out with it. I find this to be really helpful because this will also show messages that are part of this conversation, even if you've moved a message to another folder. So if you've had a long and involved conversation that's got a lot of different pieces to it, this is a nice way to be able to kind of look at all this information. A feature that was new to later versions of Office 2016 and into Office 365 is the focused inbox. If you have an older version of Outlook, it might still be known as clutter, but the focused inbox, if we'll go ahead and turn this on here, is Microsoft's use of message predictive analytics to try and figure out messages that will actually be more important to you. And so by default, it moves messages from things like massive distribution lists, mailing lists, system notifications to this folder called Other, with the intent that it's going to pull some of these messages out of your primary view. So if we go to this Other tab, we can see I have a lot of notifications. I got some Yammer updates, some updates on some tasks from mailing lists and things like that, that while important and I probably need to read, there's probably something that's not as quickly critical as maybe getting something like a quick review on something else that needs to happen. Now, one of the things about the focused inbox is that you can train the system if you have messages that come in. So say, for example, I've got a message that's coming in from Microsoft Planner down here, and I don't really actually want this in my focused inbox. If you right-click on the message, I can choose to move it to the other folder. If I move it to other, it'll move just this one time. If I say, you know what, I never want to get planner emails in my focused inbox again, I can say always move to other. And that will then move this email. Now, because these messages are already here, they're still here, but any future email that comes in from planner will move to the other inbox. Conversely, if I get an email from a coworker or for someone that I want to keep in touch with that ends up in the other box, you can do the same thing, right-click on the message and say move to focused, or always move to focused. Now, a lot of times in communications with folks, I've often been asked the question, how do I add some of the message features? Like if you're consistently needing to add people to the BCC line, it can be sometimes a bit of annoying to not be able to find that. Well, if you end up replying to an email, and we see we just have the to line, the CC, and the BC, and BCC is already exposed in my settings because I've selected up here. In the message section of the ribbon, I have the show fields item, which allows you to either toggle BCC on or off. We can also toggle from on or off. So if I, for example, have several shared mailboxes or Office 365 groups that I'm a part of and I want to actually have the message come from a different account, I have the option to do that from the drop down here. Once you've selected one of these fields will now show up anytime you create a new message. So that can be kind of handy. All right, the folders. That's kind of what everybody's here for. All right, so when we look at folders for email, by default, there's an inbox, draft, sent items. If you want to create a new folder, the easiest way to do it is just to right-click over where the inboxes are, and we'll just hit new folder here. I'll say this is new folder 1. If I want to create another one, I'll just right-click here, new folder, important messages. If I want to create a subfolder, I can right-click on this particular folder, and you can see it just automatically creates a new folder. To the best of my knowledge, there's not an actual technical limit to how many layers of subfolders you can create, but from a practical standpoint, if you go too deep, it might be hard to find your messages. So this is a quick and easy way to create folders. In older versions of Outlook, these folders were automatically alphabetized, and that was how they were sorted. Nowadays, you can actually just click and drag the folder to rearrange their order within the folders list, which is kind of handy sometimes. If we go to the inbox here, to add a message to a folder, there's a couple quick and easy ways to do that. You either can drag and drop the email into that folder, or you can also just right-click on a message. We scroll down and we hit move. On this top list, you'll see a list of recent folders that you've used, but if it's not in that current list, you can move it to another folder. Next week, we'll talk more about rules and how to set up automatic filing of messages, so make sure to tune in that point to see that kind of information. And as we can see through these various emails here, that's one of the things that's partly important. Now, for the pilers among us and those folks that kind of continue to work there, there's a couple of additional things that we can do that still allow emails to be quickly searchable that don't require as much filing. And one of them is the use of categories and search folders. We won't spend too much time on that today because that's a topic for our more advanced session, but generally speaking, if you add categories, think of them kind of like tags. If you're used to using some of the social media sites and you want to put hashtags on something, you can actually set up categories in Outlook to do about the same thing. And then once you've flagged some of these messages this way, on the left here in the folder pane under search folders, you can create, I see I've already created a search folder here for the green category. This will now show any message that has that green category flag on here, regardless of what folder it's in. This is also a really pretty handy feature if you have a message that fits into multiple categories. Say it's an important message and it's a message from a client and it's also something that requires immediate follow-up. You can then put multiple categories on the message and it will show up in multiple places. I mentioned search has dramatically improved in modern versions of Outlook, and that is very definitely true. Across any folder in Outlook, you'll see this search current mailbox option. And there's a lot of options for just natural language search. Maybe we want to search for meeting. And we'll see there's a bunch of different options that come up here. Maybe as you can see this suggestion here, maybe there's a, if I want to do a search from, now there's no meetings from ReadyTalk here. But say, for example, I want to find any message that I sent. And we could see here, there's a bunch of messages that mention me in there. But say, for example, I want to specifically see messages that were from me. You can start by using the tag from with a colon, and then start typing the name. And then now it's only going to show messages that have Dave in the from section. This can be a quick way of saying, I know I got an email from Bob, and so we just do from Bob, and then we'll see the messages that come up from there. There are a lot of advanced tools that show up in the search as well. So if you need to dive in and deeper and to change, set a date range, whether you want to filter for messages that have attachments, if you want to restrict your searches to only searching in the from line and the subject line, various other things there, that's all part of search as well. All right, just because we want to continue moving on here, this is kind of a few of the basic high-level things of kind of sorting and filtering your email inbox and taking advantage of new tools. The other section here on the message list that's really important is for your folders. If you are somebody who puts a lot of messages in folders, or even if you have search folders, an easy way to bring some of them up top here is if you just simply drag them into this favorites category and say, I want to be able to quickly access this green category search folder all the time. Or maybe you have an Outlook Office 365 groups inbox that you really want to keep track of. So by putting important folders up in your primary favorites category, you have quick and easy access to them, regardless of where you are. Let's do quickly switch over to our Outlook Online. And as you can see, this is very similar to the desktop. The various things here, I would say probably the most important piece to know is if you want to customize anything with Outlook Online, the first place to look is over here in the ribbon top section. You can see there's a gear here. Generally, a gear is your clue that there's some setting that's accessible. And so you can see that there we have themes. We can put this in dark mode if we want to. We can toggle the focused inbox on and off. Desktop notifications can be handy if you're not using the desktop version of Outlook. That way, the web app can actually give you notifications on your desktop that you've got new mail. You can change how dense the messages are packed in there, how they're sorted. And then if we open up the All Outlook settings, we have a much deeper list of available options for how we handle the layout of the screen, composing and replying. One that I would probably point out is this Customize Actions section. If you're using this a lot, allows you to pick which actions are most important. So you can see this list of quick actions that'll show up in the little icons here across the top. And if you find that you're always flagging messages, you're always marking them as read or unread, or you're always moving them into the archive folder, you might want to add this here. And so since I'm not pinning messages, but I want the archive there. And then similarly, you have the option in the message surface, which is the section in the right-hand part of the screen next to the message. And you can see there's a lot of options here for the kinds of things that you can put in here. So you can customize this to how you end up emailing, and the functions and features that you use the most, you can put right in that easy access here. We'll discard these changes. And lastly, that kind of covers the web application. We'll also look here at the mobile application. As you can see, this is actually a live demo of what the Outlook app looks like on an Android phone. You can see as we scroll through the messages, open messages, that a lot of the same kinds of things are here. Key thing to probably note about the Inbox app or the Outlook app for the phones is if you toggle the little hamburger icon in the upper left corner to bring open the settings, you can see the list of folders. You can see that everything that I've already done is already synced over here. And then in the bottom left where the gear is, we can open the settings and we can change things about how we get our notifications. If we want to add an email signature, swipe options is probably the setting that I would recommend double checking here, because depending on what kind of actions you have, if you're typically deleting things, or if you're archiving messages, or maybe you have a particular flag that you want to put on something, or you want to move it to a folder. You can always choose to move to folder. And now that I've made that change, once I get out of here, I swipe to the left, I get this quick thing and say, oh, this is an important message. I'm going to put this in my important messages folder. So that can also allow you to quickly file your emails from the mobile app. The app for iOS is slightly different, but it's a lot of the similar functionality. In the mobile app, we also have in the middle section here the search, which allows you to quickly search emails, files. You can see my recent contacts here, as well as any files that I've sorted. I can quickly search for messages that have happened as well. So the keyboard pops up here. So we can see as I've pulled up Sarah Davis, we can see the messages that I've exchanged with her, the various files and attachments, and the meetings that we've been scheduled together with. So there's a lot that you can do through the Outlook mobile application as well if you don't happen to be close to a computer. Okay. To summarize our presentation for today, we know that Outlook is a powerful productivity tool, and so making sure that you configure it to fit your needs is an important first step. And there are a ton of configuration items available, and we've only just grazed the surface of them today. Understanding where you fit in that spectrum of a filer versus a piler for your inbox organization can help you figure out whether you want to focus more on just keeping emails in an archive folder as you're marking them red or flagging them for follow-up or maybe putting categories on them, or whether you want to maintain a very rigorous folder structure. The system is flexible enough to handle any and all of that. And once again, just a reminder to make sure to come back next week for our continued deeper dive into some of Outlook's more advanced features, especially quick steps, search rules, and additional advanced search folders. All right. Leslie, do we have any questions?
We actually do. We have a few, and we just have time for one, but we can get the rest, as you said, on the next one. The question is, Kathy wants to know, is there a way to show in favorites if a folder has a subfolder?
It doesn't explicitly show, and I'll go ahead and, it won't necessarily show that it is a subfolder, but like, so for example, if I bring up new folder here, and then I also want to track subfolder, it's just going to simply add them in a list. So this is just a straight list of folders. Now, if you right click on a folder and you go to its properties, it should show you, it'll show you where this folder is located. It's located as a subfolder of inbox. And if similarly, if we do this on the subfolder, it'll tell us that it's a subfolder of new folder 1, which is a subfolder of inbox. It's a little bit unfortunate that it doesn't continue to show you there. One of the things that will show up here that I can't demonstrate because I don't have a multiple mailboxes, but if, say for example, I had my account connected in here as well, and I wanted to track both Sarah's inbox and my inbox, as soon as I drag a folder from another mailbox in here, the mailboxes that, or the folders that have duplicate names will then show what account they're connected to as well.
Awesome, great. And like I said, the rest we'll go ahead and save for next week.
Excellent. Well, and definitely, folks, if you have some questions that you come up, make sure to go ahead and send them to us, and we would love to continue this conversation. So with that, Leslie, I guess we'll go ahead and I'll turn it back over to you to wrap us up.
Oh, thank you, Dave. And thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. We welcome your questions and feedback, as he just mentioned. For more information, you can email us at contact@advisicon.com. Once you exit today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation. You'll need to complete and submit the survey to receive your PDUs. From there, you'll receive a follow-up email within 2 business days with your PDU information. If you're watching this recording on YouTube or another social media platform, please be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future uploads. On behalf of Advisicon, Dave, and myself, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you participate in future webinars. Have a great day, everyone.